So, good afternoon. This is Tomasz Sadilek, and welcome to the next seminar on strategic management and business model innovations. First, those of you who can hear me, could you please write down OK in a chat in order to see how many of you are present here? Okay, perfect. Yeah, excellent, excellent. I can see your presence here. Nice. So, what's the program for today? Today, we should finish the part about the internal strategic analysis. First, we just start with some summary. Then we gonna do one brainstorming task, or not exactly brainstorming, but the task using the brainstorming technique on BCG matrix. We're gonna speak about the GE matrix, do the practical task for ABC analysis. We're gonna speak about the product life cycle, and finally to do the SWOT analysis and the graphical description in Microsoft Excel. So we're gonna use the same Microsoft Excel file like the previous week. So if you've already downloaded in your computers the file CS4, like a case study for BCG for students. So we're gonna use this file once more because there are two more tasks for ABC analysis and for the SWOT analysis. Again, if you have some questions, just you can interrupt me anytime and write me your question in a chat, and I'm gonna answer to you. So you remember that we spoke about the Ishikawa diagram. You did the task previously. I hope that all of you checked the points obtained from the task. So I think that almost all of you have prepared in a very good way. So it's quite positive. So that was the Ishikawa diagram. We spoke about the benchmarking, and we applied in the specific example of the core competence analysis for the comparison of our company with the competitors. And then we did the practical application of BCG matrix. If you remember, the last week, first we did one case study for Nestle company, Nestle and their products, and we have been trying to, to put these products into BCG matrix. So decide what kind of products are stars, what about the question marks, cows and dogs. And then we did also the calculation for chocolate company. So how exactly to calculate the distribution of products in the quadrants, and how is their market shares. Yes, so Carlos is asking what was the maximum grade for the Ishikawa diagram. If I remember well, there were, just a moment, I have to check it. So for the Ishikawa diagram, the maximum were 3 points. Yeah, so the 3 points is the maximum for the Ishikawa diagram. Yeah, where you can find the points. So if you haven't received the email in your mailbox, then you should open your, how is it called in ANSYS for students? I think it's called student documentation or something like this. So in ANSYS, you can see the points for the individual task. There is, I think, isn't it called a continuous grading or something like this? Yeah, sorry, I cannot say it from the student's perspective. I can say it only from the teacher's perspective. But in ANSYS, if you open the course in your students list, then you can see the points obtained for this. But majority of you get the 3 points for this task. Yeah, or you can say it in a part when you submitted a task. In this task, I haven't provided any comments. I'm just check if everything is okay, and then to distribute the points. Sometimes you can see there are also some comments. Okay, fine. So today we're gonna speak about the BCG matrix and one more portfolio matrix, more detailed. So first of all, we're gonna start with one example of a starter. Yeah. So let's start with the following task. I hope that all of you know the Škoda cars. The Škoda car. This is the Czech producers. This is a part of Volkswagen Group, and nowadays this is the check the most valuable brand in the world. They produces different kind of car, and your task gonna be following. It's gonna be an in-group task. So first, you should distribute yourself in a groups that like you did the previous examples. For example, the groups for the Ishikawa diagram or for other previous tasks, and you should basically answer the question: how could we distribute the models of Skoda cars into the BCG matrix? So try to think about what kind of model could be an example of a cash cow, what kind of model could be an example of stars, what kind of model could be an example of dogs, and what kind of car could be an example of question marks. Yeah, it's more the brainstorming task. Yeah, it's not based on such example of hard data, but you can check the situation of the individual models in the internet. Yeah, so try to discuss it just now. This is a 5-minute task, and then we're gonna discuss your results. So try to discuss in your groups, and then we're gonna speak about the results for this. So one more, what's the task? Yeah, there is a Skoda car producer in the Czech Republic, and you should apply the BCG analysis for individual models of a Skoda cars. So you should decide based on the information from the internet, like like a number of cars sold, like a turnover and price of the individual products. You should decide what could be the example of a cash cow for Skoda, what could be the example of a star, what could be the example of question mark, and what could be the example for a dog. Yeah, so this is your task. You should discuss it in pairs or in your groups, and then we're gonna speak about your decisions. Okay, 1 minute left. 1 minute left. Okay, time is over, and now I'm looking forward to your ideas. What could be the example of a cash cow, stars, dogs, and question marks in an example of Skoda Auto? So, who would provide me an example of stars? So, based on the information from the internet and from research, so what could be the example of stars? So you mentioned the Skoda Octavia like a star. Okay. So definitely, if you take a look over the market growth rate and over the relative market share, the Skoda Octavia, it could be definitely the example of stars or a product of a star. Perfect. What about then what about the cash cow? What about the cash cow? The cash cows. The cash cows, this is a product that does not grow so strictly. Yeah. So the market growth rate is not it's not growing. It's a stable market growth rate, or it even start to decline. Yeah, Fabia, it could be the better example. So the Fabia, it could be an example of a cash cow. Okay. Then what about the question mark or question marks? If are some more models, question marks. So the model that are growing, but the relative market share is still quite low. What could be the example of a question mark? The model that's growing, but the market share is quite small. So generally, we would say that the question marks, there could be these, something like a SUV-oriented models, yeah, like Skoda Kodiaq, Skoda Karoq, Kamiq, yeah. So generally, these models, it seems to be like a SUV, yeah, or trying to combine a standard car with an SUV. Yeah? So this is perfect. This is absolutely right answer. And what about the final group? Yeah? What about the products? What about the products or the models that does not grow, where the market, where the market share is quite small and the market growth rate is falling down, is declining. So what could be the example of a paradox? Market share is small and the market growth rate is going down. different examples. So based on the information from the internet, yeah, there could be the Škoda Citigo. Yeah, some of you mentioned the Škoda Yeti, but if I'm right, so the Škoda Yeti is not in a production yet. It's, you know, it was the former model that's been replaced by Škoda Kamiq, Karoq, and others. So it's been replaced, I think, by Škoda Karoq, but now the example of a product could be the Citigo. I think that some of you mentioned the Citigo in the beginning. Who mentioned the Citigo? Who has mentioned it? Tomáš was absolutely right, yeah. Who else been thinking about Citigo? Yeah, so the Citigo could be the example of a product. Perfect. Excellent. So you remember the method? It was just like a starter for this. If you don't have more questions, then we're gonna move to the similar matrix, like as a BCG matrix. You know, these portfolio matrices that are putting together two variables are quite frequent in a strategic management. The GE matrix, I hope that all of you can understand what's the origin. It's in a GE company, General Electric, yeah, a huge corporation in the US dealing with everything connected with the electric energy, you know, like electric energy distribution and production of different kind of equipment for the distribution of energy, different kind of switchers, fusers, as well as different kind of electric turbines. They have also its division for the financial operations, like a GE Bank and some other daughter companies. But the GE matrix, it's quite similar to the BCG matrix, and it's also quite widely used. What are the differences? What are the differences? You know that in BCG matrix, there are two variables. One is the relative market share, and the second one is the market growth rate. In the GE matrix, they are a bit modified. The market growth rate is changed by the market attractiveness. So it means how attractive is individual segment or is individual product on a market, and the business unit strength. So we are not focusing on the, you know, on a whole market or on a product itself, but we are focusing on a business unit, and we measure the strength. Similarly, like how is it share and how is it change? What is also difference between the GE matrix and BCG matrix is the number of potential quadrants. You know, for a BCG matrix, there were 4 quadrants or 4 possibilities of combinations. Here we have 9 of them. Yeah. So we can see that the GE matrix is more punctual, or it provides more punctual information about the market and about the product portfolio, and it works with the different variables, as I mentioned. If speaking about the GE matrix, you can see 9 different quadrants, and there are also some colors that can provide us the information how to behave in these individual situations. So you can see that if the business unit strength is high or medium, and at the same time, if market attractiveness is high or medium, then the market segment and the product itself should be growing. Yeah. So we should try to grow the product and take more market share. On the other hand, if the business unit strength is low and the market attractiveness is low or medium at the same time, we should harvest. So it means to keep the products and rather to leave the market. You can see that there are 3 possible situations in between. So if the market attractiveness is high, but the business unit strength itself is low, or if the market attractiveness is medium and business unit strength is also medium. Okay, again, the situation not somewhere in between, yeah? Or there is a possibility of low market attractiveness and high business strength. So those are the situations where we should hold the current position and not to change the strategy. Yeah. So the GE matrix, more for your information, to see that we can use also a different, you know, different variables such as market attractiveness, business unit strength, and there we have 9 possibilities of these combinations. By the way, in the portfolio analysis, we can use different kind of combinations. Yeah, it's every time based on 2 variables and then to see some combinations of them. So it was just to add the information about the portfolio analysis for the analysis of products on a market. If you have some questions, and if not, now we're gonna speak about the ABC analysis for a while. So what is the ABC analysis? This is another example of the internal analysis, and it's typically used for the analysis of inventory, analysis of stock in general, and for the analysis of financial costs, yeah, or expenses. So it's used for the classification of these items. What is the main idea? Have you ever heard about the 80-20 rule? Who has heard about the 80-20 rule? 80-20 rule or Pareto rule? Have you ever heard about this 80-20 rule or Pareto rule? So if not, doesn't matter. What's the main idea of this rule? It's quite easy. We assume that that 20% of some reasons will influence 80% of results, or 80, or I can see some error explanations from in your comments. So I can see that Pedro mentions that 80% of the profits comes from the 20% of market. Yeah. So we can generally expect that 20% of some inputs will influence 80% of some outputs. Where is the origin, or where are the roots of this? The idea is quite odd. The author of this is Italian sociologist Vilfredo Pareto. So sometimes it's also called as a Pareto rule. Vilfredo Pareto lived in the end of 19th and in the beginning of 20th century, and he did a different kind of surveys and different kind of research on the distribution on income and distribution of property in the Italian society. And he mentioned quite interesting thing, that in the end of 19th century, 80% of property in former Italy was held by only 20% of people. If speaking about the property, he thought mostly about buildings and, you know, the buildings and houses in general. And he saw that this is quite interesting idea. He tried to also apply it to different areas. For the distribution of income, it's quite, you know, it's quite valid even today that 20% of people owns the 80% of property. By the way, when he did the analysis more detailed, so he checked that, for instance, 1%, the most richest Italians obtained 60% of all property in Italy. You know, those were these dukes and businessmen, bank owners, and so on. But this analysis is also valid in the quality management. Yeah, we can expect that 20% of some reasons, or 20% of some 20% of some inputs will influence 80% of some misfits or 80% of some failures. So even in quality management, it's important to focus on this 20% of inputs that can influence the 80% of outputs. We do this analysis also here. What's the main idea in the area of economics? We'll use it in the analysis of inventory items for the reason to know what are the most important items in our production, and to set a good strategy for them. So this been adapted a bit to the form of the ABC analysis. The ABC analysis is based on this 80-20 rule, and it classified the class A, that's typically 5 to 15% of all units. I mean, one unit is one is one product used in a company. Doesn't matter the quantity. Yeah, so one product, one kind of material, one kind of some part used in a company, doesn't matter how is the quantity. So the class A typically takes between 5 and 15% of these units, but they generate the 70 to 80% of value. If speaking of value, it's in this case are the money allocated in the inventory. Yeah. The class B, it's typically around 30% of units, but it takes only 15% of value. And there is the class C, this is the 50 to 60% of units, but it takes only 5 to 10% of all value. Yeah. So once more, so first, in this example, we are speaking about the inventory. I mean, like inputs that are used in the production of final products. And we would like to analyze them and set a proper strategy to these three, segments of inventory. I'm going to speak about it in a moment. So firstly, I'm going to show you the method in practical way in a minute. But first, if speaking about the class A, those are the products, typically 5 to 15% of all units. I mean, the unit, this is just one product or one input. Yeah, one input could be the steel wire. Another input could be fasteners. Another input could be glue. Another input could be, I don't know, some plastic part and so on. Yeah. So if speaking about unit is just one product that we are using in our production. These A items takes together around 70 to 80% of all value of all items. Then there is a class B. Class B, typically more products because they takes 30% of all units, but they are only the 15% of value of all products. And the class C, typically between 50 to 60% of units, but they takes between 5 to 10% of value. So how is it? What is it in reality? The A items, those are typically the products that are critical for the production itself. So the main part, those are the items that are part of the main part of our products. Yeah. So typically there are some raw materials or stuff like this. The B items, it could be some example of complements to these A items. It could be some spare parts. It could be some chemicals, very typically, and other products or other items that are connected with the production of final products. What about the C items? The C items, there are typically some kind of administrative materials and administrative stuff. There are some, some cleaning, some chemicals used for cleaning. That could be some special services, some insurance. Yeah, so typically something what's not very strategic. And what's the reason to divide the inventory, divide the stocks into these three categories? So the main idea is that if we divide them based on their importance, so to class A, that's the most important, class B less important, and class C the least important, then we can use different strategies for leading them. So for a class A, our strategy would be to try to, because those are critical products. So we are trying to decrease the price of the product. So we typically try to negotiate about the price and check the price every day. Then we would like to not to allocate too much money in there because this is the best part. So we can ask the supplier to provide to use a consignee warehouse. Yeah, but generally the A items, those are the strategic items important for our production, that are the most sensitive, most price sensitive. Yeah, and then we do the negotiation about the price. The B items, typically like some kind of chemicals, spare parts, some kind of fasteners and so on. There are somewhere between middle. Yeah. Here we can also check the price and the delivery conditions, but they are not such critical, but we still check them. And the C items, they are not very important at all. So here we don't have to take care about them too much, and basically we do not have to take some specific strategy for them. So here it could be the C items. If speaking about some, cleaning property or some disinfection and office stuff, so it could be also the catalog products, that are sold on the catalogs. Sometimes we have the we are using the automated order system, so we are purchasing them, for instance, each month in the same level. So we don't have to take care about this so much. Yeah. So the idea of the ABC analysis is to divide the items into 3 groups based on the share of units on the total value. If speaking about the ABC analysis, the same idea could be used if we do the classification of costs in a company. So if doing the classification of costs, so again, we can sort the cost in a company and see what are the A costs, B costs, and C costs. And if setting the cost strategy, so we typically focus on the A cost the most in a most important way. The C costs are not relevant too much. So in reality, what could it be? The A items in terms of cost, there are typically some material costs, energy costs, and wages. Yeah. But what are the C costs or C item costs? So it could be typically some kind of insurance. It could be a toilet and copy paper. It could be, coffee beans for a coffee machine and some others. Yeah, pencils. But in reality, if the company need to decrease the cost, they sometimes start to reduce the purchase of papers, of coffee beans, some refreshment, and so on. But it's more important to focus on delivery of energies on product suppliers, wages generally, or for the renting. Yeah? So it's important for managers to know what are the A, B, and C items, or A, B, or C costs, and then to set a proper strategy for them. So do you understand this, or is it understandable? Shall I repeat it once more? Okay, more questions? So in the ABC analysis, or maybe I can do a brief repetition, and then I'm gonna show you it at one example. So once more, if we would like to manage and control the inventory or cost in a company, we are typically applying the ABC analysis. The ABC analysis is based on 80-20 rule. We expect that the 20% of some inputs will influence 80% of some outputs. In the case of the ABC analysis, we expect that the low number of units takes a high number of overall value allocated in these units. We are speaking about the units of inventory. So then we decide to divide these units into three segments or 3 classes. The class A, this is a small number of units that are critical for the production, but they takes a high number of value. So typically a 5 to 15% of units takes 70 to 80% of total value. Those are some raw materials. It could be the it could be some plastic parts, something was directly connected with the production of our final products. The class B, those are typically 30% of units that takes 15% of total value. So items that are somewhere between the A and C, and there are typically some spare parts, some chemicals, some components used with the A items, like some fasteners and other stuff. the C class, C items, there are typically 50 to 60% of all units in a company, but they takes only 5 or 10% of all value. It could be some catalog products like office stuff, like some kind of refreshment, packaging materials, and others. They doesn't take a high value, so therefore we can automate their ordering. Ordering amount. Janita is asking, class C is like indirect overheads. It's not exactly the example, even not in the case if we do the classification for costs. No, the C items, it don't have to be the overheads. It could be, they could be direct connected with A and B items, but we are just tracking how is the share on their value. But let's take one example together. Maybe it would be better to understand it. How is it in reality? So please open the file CS4 BCG. This is the Excel file we did or we used the previous week, the last week, and try to open this, and we will do there one task about the ABC analysis. For BCG student, and we did first the BCG analysis, and now we have two more tasks. One is for the ABC analysis, and one more is for the SWOT analysis. So open them. And if you've opened them, you should see this table. So what we consider purchased items. There is, I think, 10 or how many different 9 items that are purchased in a company, and we can see the cost. This item and cost are, for instance, for 1 month. What are the items? So the items could be following: fuel for cars, it could be fasteners, it could be food for employees, some chemicals, IT services, office staff, oil for some machines, spare part for machines, and steel plates. Our task is following. Our task is to following: do the ABC analysis for these items. So we should do the ABC analysis for these items. How to do this? So the first step that we should do is to track these items, and we should sort them descending. So we should have the higher cost in the first line and the lowest cost in the bottom line. So choose these items, click on data, sort that this is in English, this is in Czech. Sort the data, and we should sort the data based on costs and from biggest to lowest. So the first step is to sort the data based on cost from the biggest to the lowest value. If you have some questions or some troubles, just please write me in comments, and I'm gonna help you. So this is the first thing, to sort them. Perfect. The second step is to calculate the cumulative sum, cumulative sum of costs. How to do this? So at the first, in the first line, the cumulative sum, those are the costs for steel plates. So I just put there is a cell C2 and enter this. Then for the second line, yeah, the cumulative sum is the sum over this, yeah, plus the cost for fasteners. Yeah. And if I do this, you know, I can then I'm gonna show you the formulas. Then I can copy this formula down and calculate the cumulative sum for all purchased items and their costs. So to calculate the cumulative sum, this is the second step. The third step is following. We should calculate the percentage. Yeah. So how is the percentage of each individual cost on a total cost? Yeah. So the total cost, we can see them in here in a cumulative sum. So how to calculate the percentage? Again, it's easy. I type is cost of part C divided by a total cost in the last line. And because we would like to copy this formula, I put here $. Yeah, you know, I would like to track this cell. So C2 in my case, C2 divided by $D $10. C2 divided by $D $10. And then again, I copy the formula and I change the format into %. Perfect. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry, it's not from the cost from individual item, but from the cost cumulative. Yeah, so D2 divided by $D $10. Sorry for my mistake. And I'm gonna show you again the formulas. Yeah, so we are counting not the individual cost, sorry for this, but the cumulative sum to the total sum. Okay, so if you have some questions, write me there. Then the next step will be following. Firstly, we do just the graphical description. What are the A items, B items, and the C items? If you remember, or as you remember from from this chart. So just a moment, I copy it here. So if you remember, the class A, they typically takes around 70 to 80% of value. Okay, so we can see that up to 70 or 80 in our example is just the part about these steel plates. So we can track the steel plates, and we can track them by some red or orange color. Then we would classify the class B. We can see the class B, it's typically 15 additional % of value. So 15 additional % of value. So the class B, it should be two another parts, up to 95%. And so I'm tracking there. Here. And the rest, those are the C items. Yeah, they takes around 5 to 10% value. So those are these A, B, and C items. One important question. it's you can see that there are just intervals between 5 to 15% of units, between 70 to 80, and so on. There is no strict number what exactly should be placed in A or B. It's more based on the on the situation in a company and how are the individual shares. This is an example with just 9 items, but in reality there could be thousands of different items. Yeah, so then we can typically, or we can do typically more scenarios. One for one where the class is only up to 70%, the another scenario for 80%, and so on. But if we do this for this small example between the A, B, and C, just a couple of items. So then for the A items would be the steel plates with the 67% of all costs. Then for a B, there will be a fasteners and spare part for machines, like a B items, and the C items, the rest of them. Okay. Yeah, sorry, you had a question about the percentages. So yes, how to do the percentages? I'm gonna show you the formula here. Yeah, it's the cumulative sum divided by a total sum. And I'm fixed the cell, so I put there a $D $10 in order to fix this cell, and I could copy the formula to another cells. So check it if everything works well, and there will be the final step now. Okay, yes, yeah. Okay, I hope that the percent are okay now. So I just hide the formulas. And the last part could be to develop a chart like this. Yeah, how to do it? To describe the A items, B items, and C items. Yeah. So in order to do it in a similar way, we should rewrite some values. So firstly, we have the A, B, and C. So for A, I put there as 67%. So the A group takes a 67% of the total company value. What about for B? For B, the B group, this is the 91 between, minus 76. So what does it mean? The A, this is, like a group, but the B, the sum doesn't matter if it's collective sum or percentage sum. This is like for B and A together. So therefore, for the B, we have to put B minus A. Yeah. So 91 minus 67. And then in a similar way, we're gonna do the C 100 minus 91. So it takes together still 100%. And how to do the chart? Yeah, so the A part takes 67%, B part 24%, and 9 takes 9%. Then we can only track them and insert a chart. Insert some recommended chart. Okay, we can put there a bar chart, but you can see it's not very nice. So we can do one thing, that we just copy these values once more. Do the chart from bit values. So in order to have a nicer chart, I just copied the values, insert the chart. And that's it. So now you can adapt the chart as you wish, the ABC. You can change the colors in an easy way. It's not a problem. To change the size, I mean the weight of this, it's more complicated, but here okay, so there should be your result. To put a chart, then of course you can describe it, what's on an x-axis, what's on a y-axis. This is not a problem. Okay, so can you insert this chart like I did? Can you insert this chart like I did? So we can use it in this way. I can enter a data, the data lines, or put there one more chart. Percentage new. Okay. Yeah, so some questions about this chart. So some questions about the chart. So it should be the result of this task. So some questions. Okay, some questions. If yes, just write it in my comments. But everybody should develop a chart like this and do the analysis of these ABC items. What does it mean? Okay, so the A parts, that takes almost 70% are steel plates. It means that we should focus on the 8 parts or A items in our strategy. So those are the items where we should more focus on the negotiation of the best price and the delivery conditions. These A items typically takes the highest number of costs allocated in the inventory. So therefore, we should try to reduce the inventory in our company for the 8 part. This is the strategy for 8 part typically. The B part, fasteners and spare parts for machines. Here the pricing perspective should be also focused on the negotiation, but not such strictly. We can see that there are typically the complements of a steel plates and and of the main products. And here is only more important to see how is the how is the amount of the B inventory or B items inventory in a stock. The C items, those are items that are not or they don't have a high impact on the cost allocated in the items, and the C items should be automated on the should be ordered on the automated way. So this is the description. Then we are using a different methods for A, B, and C items strategy. So different strategies. The A1 takes the highest number. 67% of all costs allocated in items are the A items. If we decrease the price of steel plates of just 1%, it's much more than the savings for chemicals and the IT services together. So the B part is only to lead them, and the C to do this in automated way. Yes. So another question: where should we upload our analysis? Please, as far save it in your computers, because we're gonna do one more task about the SWOT analysis. So save it, and in the end of the class you should upload it in the submission file in ANSYS. I've opened a submission file. There is a deadline till the next Monday midnight Prague time, and I'm asking you to upload this file with the ABC analysis and the SWOT analysis. But we're gonna do the SWOT analysis within 5 minutes. Fine. More questions about the ABC method? More questions about the ABC? More questions? So another question, if you mean upload, if we you ask me, did we upload the last one? You mean the BCG analysis? Then not. The BCG analysis is not necessary. Today we are doing the ABC and the ABC and the SWOT analysis. Okay, and the B, the B items, they are typically the complements to the A items, like fasteners used for production or spare parts for machines. They are not such price sensitive like A items, but still we have to check their prices. And here is also important to keep some reasonable amount of inventory in the stock. So what does it mean? It's not necessary. Our main idea is to decrease the B and put them into C. So if we have, for instance, many items in a B, it's much better to decrease the number and put them in a C. This is one thing. Second, they are not such price sensitive or such price oriented like the A1, and it's more important to take care about the amount in a stock. More questions? If we have more questions, just okay. If not, thank you. Please save your results in ABC analysis, and now we'll speak about the I'm going back to my presentation because we'll speak about product life cycle and about SWOT analysis. So the product life cycle and the SWOT analysis. Yeah. So now on slide number 14, one more tool used in the internal analysis is a product life cycle. I hope that you know this line from the from some introduction to marketing. You know, this is a line that describes the stages of entire product life cycle and describes how is the product life cycle in terms of time and in terms of annual sales volumes. Yeah. So what does it mean? In the introduction, we are typically in the beginning of the product life cycle, and the annual sales volume are quite small, but they are growing. A rapid growth is in a second stage of growth. Then we have the third stage, the stage of maturity and stabilization. And finally, the stage of declination when the annual sales volumes are falling down. When is it used? Typically in marketing, to see how is the current growth stage of our product. This is the first example. Second, it's used in the analysis of turnover or sales volume to see how's the development trend and how is its influence on these outputs. And for precise calculation of the product life cycle are sometimes used the integration count and mathematical models like this. But what's more important, the product life cycle also fits to the BCG matrix. Yeah, it fits also to the BCG matrix. How exactly? Could you, or do you have some idea where should be the cash cows, stars, question marks, and dogs in the product life cycle? Can we put it somehow together? So what could be the example of the introduction? What from BCG matrix should describe the stage one, the introduction? The BCG in a BCG matrix, the market growth rate is small and the relative market share is also small. So Pedro is answering absolutely right that question marks. Yeah, Malika as well. So the question marks, it's a situation on a market if the product's been already introduced and if the product already penetrates the market. Yeah, so question marks in the introduction stage. What about the growth stage? The growth stage. If the market growth rate is growing and the relative market share is growing, perfect, those are the stars, you understand it well. For the maturity and stabilization, the cash cows, perfect. Marek, show me even the head of cow, perfect. And for the last part, the declination. Perfect. Yeah. So the dogs. Excellent. Yeah. So what I would like to stress there. Yeah. So you see that similar like in math, also in strategic management, different kind of analysis fits to the another one. Everything is connected together. Yeah. So you can see what's the main idea of this, to see what's the current stage of the product and how to set a suitable strategy for this. You know, if there is an introduction stage, we typically have to more invest in a product. But if this is in a stage of declination, any further investment, it could be only the wasting of money. Yeah. If this is on a stabilization, the same. It's not necessary to invest in this too much. Typically, we would like to keep the product only for a longer time on a market, but not to invest to the marketing campaign, for instance. Yeah. So it's important to see if we decided on some further investment in the product itself. Yeah. One more question. What do you think? From the marketing and strategic management perspective, is it okay if the product has a long product life cycle or if the product has rather a short life cycle? What do you think? Is a longer life cycle better than the short life cycle? And provide me an example of product where the long life cycle makes sense and where the shorter life cycle makes sense. Perfect, Malika, you're absolutely right. So the short life cycle were typical for in the IT industry with different kind of technology products like cell phones, computers, and so on. Perfect, you're absolutely right. And Tadea, you're also very right. Yeah, so the cars are more the products with a long life cycle. You know that typically some products that's successful in one market, after the finishing of the production, the all production line is moved to some low-cost country and then it's produced for many years. Yeah, or if you know the Volkswagen cars, this is the same example. Yeah, sometimes they try to prolong the life cycle of existing Volkswagen Golf for longer time, just to use the market potential in the market. Perfect. Cell phones, an example of a short life cycle. Cars, long life cycle. Perfect. Yeah, the life cycle makes also the sense for food. Yeah, different kind of food products is also a good example. Perfect, perfect, excellent. So we understand this. Yeah, fine. So if you don't have more question for furniture as well, yeah, good example. Long life cycle for furniture, it also makes sense. Yeah, printing machinery, generally all different kind of machines for the further production. Perfect. Then we can move to the last example, and this is the and we are going to the SWOT analysis, but one more portfolio metrics. Yeah. So if we spoke about the product life cycle and how are the different life stages of products, but there is one more portfolio metrics that putting together two two variables. And one variable are the products. So if we operate with a new or existing products, and if we operate with the products on a new or existing markets. So you see a similar matrix like a BCG for products and matrix. And in this case, we are searching what's a suitable growth option or growth strategy for this individual market. And there are four possibilities. Yeah? The market penetration, if there is an existing product and existing market, the market development, if we have a new market and existing product, the product development, if the market is existing but product is new, and new products for new market, it's called a diversification. What does it mean? The market penetration, it's the situation if we have the existing product on a market, so the product's been already developed, our company already operates on a market, doesn't matter if this is a domestic market or foreign market, and then we use the market penetration. The market penetration is the situation that we would like to promote the product in a very wide way. And we are typically using a price penetration strategy. So it means to use the comparable price with our competitors, or even the smaller price than our competitors have. So this is the market penetration. If our company or if our brand is already on a market and we would like to promote some existing product, the product's been already developed. This is one example. This is the first case. The second case, the market development, is if we have the existing product, but we are entering somehow new market. It could be a new foreign market, or it could be a domestic market. If we would like to enter, for instance, a new segment of customers. So we were as far only the B2C producers, but now we would like to enter the B2B market. So this is the example of market development. If we have, if the company already operates in a market, but we are developing a new product, it's a situation of product development. So existing market, but a new product. Yeah. So the product development, we're gonna speak about this, I think, within 2 weeks. Yeah. Some introduction to the product management. So what are typical stages and how is a typical strategy? And diversification describes the situation if there is a new product and a new market. So diversification, it's a different situation in comparison with the market penetration, because we would like to differentiate our product and our company. And it's typical if we have some innovation So some innovation at a new market. So we are presenting what's our so-called USP, a unique selling proposition. I hope you understand it from the course of marketing. So the USP, what's our USP that we can use for the diversification? What's our unique selling proposition? It could be the unique selling proposition could be the longer durability, it could be the outstanding quality, different kind of material, a lower weight of the product, higher durability, better capacity, and so on. Okay. If you don't have the questions, so last thing is about the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis, I hope that everybody knows that, but this is somewhere in between. It's even not the internal and not the external analysis. So it's for the reason that the SWOT analysis have both parts, the internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. Firstly, what are typical parts that are implemented in the strengths and weaknesses? So we measure how is it within the company. So what are the functional areas of the company in the area of management, marketing, finance and accounting, production and operations, research and development, management information systems, and others. If speaking about the product and if speaking about the product communication, this is a part of marketing typically. So if speaking why the company is strong on the market due to this product, we are speaking about the marketing functions. If speaking about the external opportunities and threats, speaking about the external opportunities and threats, so there we could put the we are typically putting there the outputs from the external analysis. So if you remember, like we did the PESTEL analysis, for the political, economic, social, technical and technological, legal and environmental factors, we are putting there the information about the competitors from the Porter's 5 forces. So like we did the Porter's 5 forces for the existing and new competitors, for our customers, for suppliers, and for the competitor rivalry, or from another external methods like a panel discussion, like a brainwriting and others. So that's the way how to put it there. But you know, the SWOT analysis, those are typically these 4 quadrants, these tables. But I would like to show you one more thing that's more, let's say, more detailed or a bit sophisticated, but it provides more complex information. And if you write in some final thesis, you can apply it there, I think, in a very successful way. So please open once time, or I'm sharing with you once time, this Excel file, and go to the go to the list called SWOT analysis. So let's move from ABC to SWOT analysis. What do we consider? This is just an example, nothing too complicated. This is the situation that we define from the internal and external analysis, some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we would like to do a more proper evaluation, you know. How to do this? Sometimes we apply the following approach that for each factor, we adapt the importance of the factor, and then we do the evaluation. So the importance, I put there that the importance is on a scale from 0 to 1, or from a scale from 0 to 100%. I put there just some examples. It could be something else, but how to do this? If firstly, we decide how could be the importance of individual factors on the overall company performance. So what do you think? Is it more important to have a good product, skillful staff, or liquidity? You can decide, and you will distribute this percentage between these 3 factors. So what is important? It's important that the total number for the importance has to be 1, or has to be 100%. So distribute the numbers distribute these 100% between these three factors, based on their importance to the overall company performance. So I would say that the good product is much better than the skillful stuff and then the liquidity. So I put 0.5 for good products, 0.3 for skillful stuff, and 0.2 for liquidity. So this is the first step. Then we typically do the same one. I mean the importance for the rest of parts. So for the weaknesses, from my perspective, there is a bad communication, bad vocation, and not innovative. I think that the worst one is the lack of innovativeness. Then 0.3 could be, or 0.25 for location and for communication. It's just my idea. You can do this. You can do this in a different way. It's up to you. For opportunities, so the biggest opportunity could be a new technology, then 0.3 and so on. For threats, you can. So you can distribute the values on your own. Two more comments, two important comments. Once more, I mentioned that to the internal strengths and weaknesses, there go the input are the results from previous internal analysis, like the ABC analysis, like the Ishikawa diagrams and others. To the opportunities and threats, the input are the external analysis. When doing this kind of analysis on your own with the importance and evaluation, it's very good if you have the same number of factors for strengths and weaknesses, like 3 here and 3 here, and also the same number for opportunities and threats. You will see the reason in a minute, but there could be a different number for strengths and opportunities. For instance, 3 for strengths and weaknesses and 5 for opportunities and threats. This is okay. That's not a problem with them. But if you have a different numbers, then the results are not 100% comparable. So this is the first step. The second step is that we'll distribute the points, and the points are following. 1 point is the lowest evaluation, and 5 points is the highest evaluation. So, you know, we should distribute the grade. What's the evaluation of product, staff, liquidity, and so on. So I would say that the product is it's over average, so 4 points. The staff is also okay, but the liquidity is low. Then I skip to the opportunities and do the similar evaluation. So the company is using new technologies. This is okay. New market, just a slightly, and the distribution channel, it's also under average. So let's move to the weaknesses and threats. Here is a bit different. We do the evaluation still on a scale from 1 to 5, but because there are, like a negative, we have to put the minus. So the minus, put the evaluation with a minus. So if there is a bad location, it's important factor, so I put there a -4. For bad communication, a -2, for instance. Not innovative, -3. Changes of demand, it's quite relevant, -4. Huge competition, -4, and difficulty of market entry, -1. What we can see? We can see the way